Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the fifth installment of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast live experience. This episode features George Hammel. George is also on episode 23 of this podcast. But in this special edition, we dive deeper into the topic of valuation. So how does a racer or a rider take their program and put a monetary value to it? We talk about some of the struggles. Now, this show is brought to you by GSP XTV axles. So if you are in the market for a new set of axles, I highly recommend you check them out. You can get a hold of Jimmy Moore at Bold Racing, who is one of our other podcast sponsors. He's a distributor for GSP XTV axles. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time in the intro here. I just want to remind you, if you are getting value out of this podcast, please leave a rating and a review on iTunes, and also subscribe that we don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Very specifically, our next guest is going to be Blair Morgan, and we're also going to have a pretty cool announcement in the next show. So I highly encourage that you subscribe so you don't miss that one. Without further ado, let's hop in.
Hey! Welcome. We are now on the fifth episode of this podcast live experience. My name is Josh Weesey. I'm your host. Really excited about this one today. We're bringing back George Hammel. So if you didn't know this, George was featured on episode 23 of this podcast. He rocked it out. Super inspirational story. What's up, George? Scott's already on too, man. You were right on it. Right on the 9 o'clock. What's up? I'm really excited about tonight. I mean, last time I talked to George, it's been a while, and he got me all fired up about things. So, I mean, it's kind of hard not to get inspired by this guy. So I'm really excited to have him back on. I want to give you some insights about what this show is about in case you haven't seen it before. Hey, Kurt, man. Kurt Krebs is on. What's up, buddy? This show is all about helping you as a rider or racer take your sponsorship program to the next level. So if you are, if you've never even had a sponsor before, you can listen to the show. If you're looking at a $100,000 program and you're trying to figure out how to get that to $200,000, this is your show. That's what we're going to talk about, though. The key thing in this episode is that whole valuation piece. Sometimes it is hard to know what your program is actually worth. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. If you want some other advice, if we don't cover everything you want here, we actually covered a similar topic in basically going from a non-valued program to a valued program back on the first live version of this with Travis Pointer, who is also on this show. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that. If you're listening now, feel free to leave comments. Let me know what you're thinking, how you're feeling. Thumbs up is great. Throw some little hearts in there. Share it up. It looks like Scott just shared it too. If you do share it, leave a hashtag shared, and then I can go back later and make sure I thank you for that specifically. If you have people that you would love to hear this show, go ahead and invite them specifically as well. Before I get too far, I want to give a shout out to GSP XTV axles. So they are basically sponsoring this live show. And if you want to know how to get a hold of them, actually one of their distributors is Bold Racing, who also sponsors the show. So go through Jimmy Moore at Bold Racing. He can get you connected with some axles. Really good stuff. I said this before. I'm kind of a manufacturing geek too. I get, pretty spun up about how things are made, and I dug into the details around how GSP XTV axles are made, and it's pretty awesome. They got a lot of history. I've been doing it for like 30 years, so check them out. Well, in a minute, I'm going to bring George on too, but I just want to thank everybody for listening to this show, and I want to remind you, if you are listening, go ahead and put in a little question at any time during the show. I will go back through later and pull questions out that we can ask George directly. And again, leave comments throughout, whatever it might be, or a little thumbs up, and share it. It's all good stuff. Well, I'm going to actually start pulling George up. So just give me a minute to get that straightened out. In the meantime, go ahead and start throwing those questions up there. All right, George, I hope it's happening. It's happening right now. Yo. Got the machine in the background, just ready to roll.
Yeah, I am. You know it.
I got my machine right here. Look.
Oh,
it's like the same thing.
Which is different colors, right?
And it's just it might be a little slower, but this is where it all started, man. The Kawasaki Teryx, right? This is what took the whole UTV racing scene. Yeah, exactly, man. I remember, so Sarah Price was on the last show. She was on the fourth live episode, and I think she started off her racing career in a Teryx too at King of the Hammers. So.
Yeah, she did something super gnarly, like I think in South Africa or something. One of those. Hey, winning.
Hey, that was not planned, everybody. Same hats, not planned, but nice work.
I figured I'd wear this guy too.
Yeah, I got the Bold Racing shirt on today. I don't have the Neverlift one on, but it's a good setup, man. Hey, with people joining, it looks like we got a few more people coming on right now. Mandy Martin, Mike Garcia, Cody Sanders. So, again, feel free to leave some comments and questions as we talk, and then also add your friends, share it up. So, George, man, I've been talking a lot. Let's hear from you, man. What brings you here?
Well, I just really appreciate all the stuff that you're doing and all the information that you're giving back to the racing community. You know, it's hard for people to get, notice and sponsors and keep their dreams alive. So whatever I can do to help is totally cool with me, man.
You're doing it, man. You're doing it. All I do is I just turn on the little machines, and then I let people talk. I don't really do much, so it's good stuff. Hey, Kevin, what's up? Cody Sanders, how's it going? But, yeah, man, so, George, you have been on a journey over the past couple years. I mean, it's been, almost a year, I think, since we last sat down and talked. So what has changed in your program over this past year?
Well, a lot's changed. We, as far as like just the racing program goes, we got a new car, we got some new partners, and we have a really, really good setup going. I mean, everything in the program has finally got to the point where I have enough knowledge to be able to really go out there and kick ass. Like, so the only thing we have to do is tune up the suspension a little bit, get some different, setup stuff taken care of, and we'll be challenging for some wins and maybe even a championship. It'll be pretty cool. Especially with me being a non-able-bodied person, going out and competing against all those pro guys, man, it's going to feel real good when I'm on the top of the podium.
So you went through this in detail on your full episode 23, but maybe just if people don't know you that well, share your story real quick. Just kind of give us an update. What do you mean by the able-bodied comment?
Yeah, sure. So the Cliff's Notes is I used to be a professional dirt bike racer, and I broke my back. And it ended up paralyzing me from the waist down. To date, I've broken 58 bones. It's kind of the nature of the beast when you race dirt bikes. But I was able to come back and rehab, over a long duration of time. It took me 5 years to get out of a wheelchair and start walking around. And I use leg braces now. I'm still paralyzed from the waist down, but they call it incomplete paraplegia. So I still have a little bit of function with my quadricep muscles. But I can walk around. I kind of walk like a penguin. But, hey, man, I'm standing up, I'm walking, and I'm doing stuff I love now. So,
yeah,
to me, it's pretty
racing.
Cool. So, oh, yeah. And I'm racing
awesome,
at the top
man.
level, which means a lot to me.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. I actually, I'm going to do a quick plug for a future episode. Blair Morgan is coming on. So if you know, he got injured really badly in, I think, 2008. And he just came back to X Games this year. So he's got a modded out snow bike with a cage on it, and he's racing there with like Doug Henry and Paul Thacker, and it's really inspirational stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I follow all those guys. Those guys give me a lot of inspiration.
Penguin. That's a good one, Jim Hart. I love it. Well, the real topic that we want to dive into today is valuation. So I've got a book for people who are on the video version of this, Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorships. It's written by Alex Stryler. I keep it right here. That talks. It has a chapter on valuation, but how do you do it, man? Let's walk us through the challenges and I don't know your struggles that you've seen trying to tie a number value to your program.
Yeah, I've pretty much learned the hard way doing everything. That's kind of been the story of my whole life. I've had to figure out everything from understanding what partners want or sponsors want, all the way up to seeing how bigger companies want a more specific understanding of what you're going to provide them, what the deliverables are, and what you can actually value yourself towards them with. And it's difficult in small motorsports because, motocross is probably the biggest of the small motorsports. But snowmobiling, off-road racing, all of those series and sports are nothing like NASCAR or IndyCar or IMSA or any of those organizations, because they have analytical data that you can provide to companies and say, hey, this is what I'm worth because I'm getting all of this attention. I have all these people looking at me, and this is what you're going to get back. Unfortunately, we don't have those types of options. So what we have to do is we have to understand the world around us really, really well to be able to have conversations like that and tell people, well, this is what we think everything is worth, but it's subjective. So let's just say you're talking to, Johnny's Tire Shop down the road. Well, they're going to look and they're going to say, oh, well, we're not going to give you $1 million, but we might have $500 to give you.
Right.
And we can put a sticker on the car, and we can also, utilize your notoriety in the local market to generate some business for us. So the value that they're assuming that you have is to give back so that they get customers in the door. So there's not a monetary value that they're saying that you're worth. You're telling them, I would like to support my program for, let's just say, $500, and then you're going to give back. But the only way that you can give back and get that to grow is to give back more than $500. Mm-hmm. And, there's not a place like, well, in a day job, there's not a place like salary.com to say, how much is George worth? How much is Josh worth? How much is Racer ABC worth? There's no place to go and do that. So it really takes a lot of research when you're talking to anybody, Johnny's Tire Shop or Coca-Cola. All of those people have different understandings, and it's subjective to what they want. So it's really, really crucial that you do your research. You make sure you understand everything that they're doing before you even approach them, because they might already have somebody like me or like you or whoever it is. Mm-hmm. And then you'll understand how much value you can provide to them, and then they can be the judge of whether or not that is valuable to them.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard that some of the series have like some analytics that you can get access to, but I think you have to ask, meaning if there is any video or TV coverage that they have some analytics around there. Is that something you've ever ventured into? Like, have you ever reached out to the series and said, give me some of this data?
Yeah, always. We do it for everything that we do. So even every time we have reports like, with Yamaha, for instance, we try to understand what value we provided them, how many units we sell, how many, tires we sell for certain sponsors with tire companies like Fuel Wheels. And, I try to keep track of all that. The solder weld guys, I try to make sure that I try to start new accounts for them. The FCR guys that help us with suspension, we've referred a ton of people over there. The guys at Bold Racing, we've given, Jimmy a lot of business as well. And I try to make sure that I understand as much as I can. There's always going to be stuff that slips through the cracks. And even with computer analytical data, it's the same thing. But if I know that for sure I referred 10 clients to the suspension companies, then I know that what they gave me was less than what I gave back to them. So that means I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
And that's what they deserve. They took a chance on us. They took a chance on me. They had no idea I was going to provide any value back to them. But what they got was hopefully good, and it made a difference for their business.
That's awesome. I just want to pull out a couple of comments here. First off, Greg Schill likes hugs. Okay, so that's been made clear from the comments here. That's an internet hug right there. Brent Ferguson, so just a quick question that you had. How do I get the book? So I'll ask you this, and you can respond back in the comments. You talk about this book, the Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorship book. So if so, just say, yeah, that's the book that I'm looking for. And then I love your sponsor, by the way, Brent, Visa. I think we've all had to use our Visa or MasterCard sponsors at some point too. But so, George, another thing that I think comes up in the whole valuation thing is, I guess I call it cognitive dissonance, and that's like did you make the right decision or not? Like, so for example, let's say you throw a dollar value out there. You say, hey, Bob's Tire Company, $100. I'm worth $100. And then 2 months later, you're like, oh man, was that the right number? Or was it 200? Or should I actually said 50? I mean, do you go through that process where you're really not sure if you made the right call on your valuation?
I think with experience comes a little bit more knowledge when it comes to that. But to be 100% honest with you, my approach is never to tell them what I think I'm worth, because 99% of the time I'm wrong. They always know what they want to spend. And
perfect.
I've said this last time in the podcast, and I tell this to everybody. How do you get sponsors? Well, you work hard, first of all, but nobody wants to give money away. If you asked me on the street for $5, I'd say no, because I don't know what I'm going to get back, and vice versa, because it's not valuable. So I go in with that mentality saying, okay, this person doesn't know me. They don't know what I'm going to be able to do for them, and I'm hoping that I can provide something back to them. So it's really what type of influence I can provide in the market for them, and them understanding what I can provide to them, or anybody for that matter. And if they see value in it, they already know what that value is. They are crunching numbers all day, every day. All those marketing guys and all the marketing teams, they know. Yeah. And even if you go down to like Bob's Tire Shop down the street, like we just mentioned, he knows how much he can afford. He knows if he has any extra money this month. So he's going to tell you, $100, $500, whatever it is, that's how much I can do. So whenever I approach them, I usually try to do something like, here's what I think we can provide. Here's the longevity of that program. And this is what I think our relationship could be for the next 6 months, the next 10 years, whatever it is. And then they can provide the answer to us on what they think the value is. For us, we already know what we need to raise. So if they say, what do you want specifically, we give them a number. Usually it's option A or option B, because that's what they want. But it's still very difficult because they don't necessarily value you the same way.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to go back and answer Brent Ferguson's question about getting this book. I think that I actually got this book through the Facebook page. I think he had a link on there. So if you search Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorship on Facebook, go to that page, and I think there's a link out to it. It might be on Amazon too. But either way, awesome book. It's an easy read. I would highly recommend it. So yeah, George, going back to what you were just saying there, do you do like a package deal, like package A, package B, package C, and allow people to make some adjustments?
Yeah, I mean, that approach I think is in my mind, people do that and they have success all the time, but in my mind, that approach is a little antiquated. And the only reason I say that is because anybody in a marketing position at any company these days doesn't think the way that they used to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even last year, because everything is so saturated. I mean, look at how cool it is that we can do this live feed on Facebook. Well, we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones that can do that. Right. So is our value showing this live Facebook content? Maybe right now, but next week there might be somebody that's doing the same thing. So our value is, devalued at that point. Yeah. So I always think that having a package is a good idea as a backup plan, just in case they don't know what they want. But most people will. So I think if we understand what our value is, present them with what they think they need, then it will kind of work itself out, so to speak. But everything that I've seen so far is that the platform and the stories are what create the value. Yeah. Your reputation, how you influence consumers, how you influence fans, your popularity, all those different things make a big difference on how you have to value yourself. If you go to the track and you're just a total, D, then how are you going to make any friends, and how are you going to be valued to anybody? You go out on track and you take somebody out, you lose your reputation. If you go, into the pits and you're crying and throwing stuff, that's also going to devalue you. So every single little thing counts to make a big difference.
No, that's good. So one other question that I want to ask, and then maybe we'll start pulling in some other ones from the audience, is around a partner, like a PR partner or someone that helps connect you with sponsors or a publicist, whatever you want to call it. Now, you work with somebody right now, right? Is it Smile, Don Smile? Did I get that name right?
Don's a great guy. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I think there is a certain point where you need help, where you might not be able to do it all yourself. So maybe tell us about how you moved into, to making the decision to choose somebody to come into your program to help.
It was pretty much based on the exact same conversation that we're having. I was having a difficult time understanding what my value was. If I call a big company or I can't get a hold of somebody, I say, what the heck is wrong? Why isn't somebody answering my call, or why don't they want to talk to me? In most cases, it's because they just don't know, or I wasn't approaching it right. An email is only going to go so far. A phone call is only going to go so far. And me not understanding the professionalism of how these big marketing tasks operate was a huge hindrance to my program. So I said, well, let me go out and look for some people that I think could potentially help. And when I did, I called like 10, 15, 20 people, and I had conversations with them. And this process took about 8 months. And I went through and I was like, man, this is really, like, none of these people are really telling me what I want to hear, and most of them, honestly, were just jerks. Like, they were just way too cool for me. So it was like, who's this dude, George? I don't care about him. I'm already making this money. I'm getting all these big commissions from big athletes. I don't need to help this guy. And I read an article on LinkedIn about how fan engagement worked with sponsorships and how you could actually activate and make your value better. And Don was the one that wrote that. He put together a really, really good article because he saw the way that he has been in NASCAR for like 20 years. And he saw the way that NASCAR had changed from being guys that can build their cars in their garage and move them forward and go race. Well, that's how NASCAR was built. Off-road racing is right at that exact same point right now.
Yeah.
Everybody can do their own thing. And that's how off-road racing is going to be built as well. So I talked to him and I said, I really wanted to start a fan appreciation program this year and increase what I'm worth to my potential sponsors, because I can see that the racing is not big enough yet to gather back what we need to do it in the next 10 years. And he said, well, let me think about it. Let me give it about a week or so.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you, at that point. And he researched me and he did a little bit of, background checking. When he understood the things that I've done in my life to get to the point that I'm at, he goes, man, I can't believe that you've gone through all this stuff and nobody's recognized it yet. So that was all I needed to hear. And I said, what can I do to be able to work with you? And how can we make a long-term relationship out of it?
No, that's perfect. I wanted to pull that out because I think it's important sometimes to recognize when you need help, whether it's from a family member or friends or, in your case, a professional, right? Sometimes you have to get to that point where you ask for help. And I think it's good that you did that, because that's scary, man. That's like saying that you got a weakness, and I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm just going to go back through here real quick, and I just want to call out. Someone said he loves bacon. So do you have like a thing for bacon? I don't know. It's not rare.
They played a joke on me at the last race. It was pretty awesome. We had one of our buddies, Jeff Engel. He came out and he was cooking for us, and he brought his toy hauler and everything. So we had a really nice pit set up. He had the grill. So we had a good hospitality area. But we ate breakfast in the morning, and I was like, man, that bacon smells so good. And, we were all eating it and out. And so right before I went to get in the car, they had a little piece of bacon hanging from the front windshield trying to get me to go faster to get the bacon.
Awesome. Someone I work with, Matt McClure, just joined too. He's a bacon fan, so I think that might work for him.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll pull a question out here from Brent Ferguson. How do you ask for sponsors? That's like the age-old question, and there's 1,000 ways to do it. So what's your advice there? How do you reach out and ask for sponsors?
Well, I don't ever directly ask for sponsors because, like I said, if they value you, they're going to ask you. So anytime I'm approaching any of those situations, I usually ask the person, whoever it is, that's a decision maker, what they would like and what their goals are in the future. So, for instance, if we go down to, like we said, Bob's Tire Shop, well, Bob, what do you want to do in the next 6 months? Well, of course, he's going to say, I want to sell more tires, right?
Right.
Well, I think I might be able to help you sell tires. Would you be interested in, helping us? And then it'll go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just a quick reminder, we'll have a couple more minutes if people want to shoot questions out there. Otherwise, I just keep rambling because I could talk about this stuff forever. I mean, that's basically what I do is I talk about this stuff all the time. So I just saw somebody made a comment here, Chris Eiton, I think. Monthly sponsorships may have value. So what do you think about that, George?
I think it's a really good way to look at things. There's been so many changes over the past, year, 2 years, 3 years that any type of modular, mentions like that would be a big thing to understand in the future. I think a lot of companies are wanting to win and they're, dating is overrated. Marriage is the one to look at. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are really over dating as far as sponsors go, but the monthly stuff can still help though. So, you have a big race coming up. Why don't you pay for that big race? Because it's only going to be valuable for the person at that location in that duration of time, and then you're good to go.
Definitely. Travis said, will you sponsor me? Circle yes or no. That's perfect. Mike Garcia, hope Bob's Tire Shop is paying for all those plugs. This episode is also brought to you by Bob's Tire Shop. No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about too is the adjustment from the product sponsorship to the paid sponsorship. So Travis and I talked about this a little while back, but I know there's a lot of people listening right now that they've only ever had, 25% discounts on products or free products, whatever it may be. And going from that transition can be a little awkward at times, especially if you already have somebody that's supporting you from a product standpoint. So have you gone through that? And if so, how did you kind of navigate it?
Yeah, and in fact, that's one of the things that was my catalyst to be able to reach out to somebody for more help. It's very difficult, and especially in the small motorsports that we're in, there's just no money in the small motorsports market. What I would like to do is see more non-endemic companies come into the market. I mean, this UTV racing by itself, not just off-road racing, but UTV racing by itself is the fastest racing segment growing, period. There's nothing bigger. So there's no reason why these non-endemic brands shouldn't come in. But unfortunately, and I think Travis said this when you guys were talking too, they don't know yet. They don't know what they don't see. So we have to explain it to them. And I couldn't do it by myself. And being able to go away from just getting product discounts and free stuff wasn't something that was going to be easy because truthfully, a lot of these motorsports companies that are putting their time and stuff into UTVs may not or don't have the money to be able to do that. So that was a bridge that was never going to be crossed. It was just never going to happen until I looked outside, maybe the non-endemic stuff,
Yeah, so for people who don't know what that means, non-endemic is outside of the industry. And just think about NASCAR. NASCAR, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's full of non-endemic sponsors. So, the Tides or, there's tons of them out there. And that's a huge, huge market. So the off-road industry, the sponsors within the off-road industry specifically or motocross, there's just some big ones. But just imagine how many opportunities are there. So you did this, I think, with what? It was Supercuts, right? So Supercuts sponsored you for a little while. That's non-endemic, and that's phenomenal.
and that was another thing that we should probably bring up is Supercuts was a huge help. They launched my UTV racing platform. I mean, they paid for half of my first UTV, and they supported me for the first 2 years. And that was a perfect relationship. I gave a bunch back to them, but corporate decided we're not going to do any marketing except for radio and print. So they cut everything. And so a business decision like that takes it away from everybody. You know, even charities like breast cancer and different things like that, they have to look at it the same way because one decision takes away everything. And that's what it did for us. So, you know, me understanding that was a real swift kick because I needed to make a decision what I'm going to do now. Now I don't have any funds coming in. I have to figure out how I'm going to get more stuff for free, more discounts, and look for more non-endemic people. And it's really, really pushed me to be able to understand this stuff a lot better. And, you know, Don has been amazing help for me because he really understands the marketing side of all this that I didn't even think of.
Right. Well, we're getting close to time here, so we'll probably answer one more question. And it looks like the one I can see right in front of me right now is from Brent Ferguson again. So how do we get the word out? So I think what he's talking about too is like how the UTV industry is growing, off-road industry is growing. How do we get that word out there so people know that this is the place to come throw the money into?
Yeah, that's a real hard one. I mean, all the stuff that I've seen Brent do on Facebook and all of the things that we're doing, like just this podcast and the different things that we're able to do really grows the opportunities for everybody because each time somebody gets on TV, each time somebody has a live Facebook share, or even some random photograph going to a big channel makes a huge difference. You know, and anytime you can get those non-endemic sponsors, you know, just takes one of us, Travis, me, anybody, to be able to understand that there's value, that all of a sudden grows a huge market. I would like to see if well, everybody can help us too. I would like to see if I can get on the Ellen DeGeneres show because I'd like to share my story. Not necessarily about racing, but about my life. And then all of a sudden, everybody sees me in a UTV on the Ellen DeGeneres show. There's a huge market right there.
Definitely.
So stuff like that I think would help grow and make sure that we get the word out there about this little off-road cars that we like playing with. Just like you said, started from golf carts, now they're racing.
Definitely. Well, George, do you have anything left to just kind of close things out?
No, I just really appreciate you having me. I think it's fantastic that you're doing this to help support all the guys out there and really just making sure that everybody gets as much knowledge as possible. I think it's fantastic what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the time again. And for people listening, thanks for all the comments and the support and the questions. We'll probably go back through. If we missed anything, we'll leave some comments and try to answer your questions. But at this point, we're closing things out. Have fun and ride safe.
That's it. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. If you want to be a part of these live shows, go ahead and head over to the Facebook page, the Sponsored Rider Club podcast Facebook page. Follow that. Look out for our live videos. That way you can actually ask questions to the guests that are coming on the show. At this point, though, I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.